Welcome back, dear friends. Uh, we would be discussing a very interesting topic today. Namely, we would be looking into the methods of improving the performance of vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Uh, we would be not looking into the radical measures like using a flash chamber or using accumulator. That we would not be discussing. What we would be understanding is the effect of operating variables on the performance of vapor compression refrigeration cycle. So what I mean by operating variables, you would understand soon. I would begin with uh, plotting the vapor compression cycle on a pressure enthalpy diagram, and then we would be looking into the effect of operating variables and how they affect the performance of the vapor compression cycle. So this is the agenda of the lecture. Don't worry, even if you don't understand right now what I'm trying to tell you. As we proceed in the lecture, you would be convinced that you are understanding what I mean by operating variables and its significance in improving the performance of the cycle. So relax and try to be attentive to what I am trying to convey to you. So as you see on the whiteboard, which I displayed, I am writing the agenda of the lecture. I would be discussing the effect of operating variables, performance effect of operating variables on the performance of vapor compression system. Why is it important? It is because this understanding, it is basically a thermodynamic discussion, but this understanding of effect of operating variables goes into the practical kind of interventions. I mean to say that if you understand this, if you work in any system, any work with any actual refrigeration plant, this understanding is going to help you in improving the coefficient of performance of the system. Okay, and in other words, that would help you in saving the electricity uh, consumption or energy bill of that utility. Okay, so this is the significance of this discussion in practical life, I mean. So effect of operating variables on the performance of VCR is what we are going to discuss today. VCR is what? VCR is vapor compression refrigeration cycle or a system. Okay. So let me first just introduce you what is VCR by showing this VCR on a pressure enthalpy diagram, which you are already familiar with. But let us revise this a bit. So let us say the vertical axis represents the pressure and the horizontal axis represents the enthalpy. So the vertical axis is representing the pressure P and the horizontal axis is representing the specific enthalpy H. And allow me to draw the vapor dome. The vapor dome on a pressure enthalpy diagram is a bit slanting kind of dome. It is what is like what I had drawn on the board. Okay, so this is the vapor dome and this is what is the pressure enthalpy diagram. You are familiar with the simple saturation cycle, and we know that the simple saturation cycle, or for that matter any two pressure system, would operate between the condenser pressure, which is the higher pressure, and the evaporator pressure, which is the lower pressure. Evaporator pressure is also known by the name suction pressure, and the condenser pressure is also known by the name discharge pressure. Discharge with respect to the compressor and suction with respect to the compressor. And the simple saturation cycle runs like this. So this is, let us say, 1 to 2, which is an isentropic, a constant entropy line drawn from the saturation curve, where 1 is on the saturation curve and 2 is in the superheated region. The process 1 to 2, as you know, is isentropic compression process, and it represents the practical compressor in the real life. 2 to 3 is a condensation and heat rejection phenomena. There is a sensible cooling and then there is a condensation. So this process ideally should be at constant pressure, and then the process 3 to 4, as you know, is an irreversible process. It is a isenthalpic process. Okay, it's a vertical line on the diagram. It is a vertical process on the diagram. Okay. Let me just try to work out. Just I'm trying to draw a vertical here. Yeah. So this 3 to 4 is a vertical, meaning that it is isenthalpic. Okay. So you can excuse me for the diagram not looking exactly the way we are planning to appear. I want it to appear. So 1 to 2, just assume that it is isentropic. 2 to 3 is a constant pressure process. So this has to be horizontal actually. 3 to 4 is isenthalpic, H is equal to C, and 4 to 1 is the constant pressure process, is equal to C. Okay. So now this is the simple saturation cycle, and we will be looking into how this cycle is modified. So the first modification to this cycle is suction superheating. Okay. So let me write down the suction superheating here. Let me use pink. So suction superheating, if you concentrate your attention on this term suction superheating, you would understand that we are talking about the change. We are talking about changing the inlet conditions to the compressor. Okay, we all know that the compressor in the simple saturation cycle receives the refrigerant which is dry saturated. So when I'm saying it is suction superheating, what I mean to say is that the vapor, instead of the vapor being dry saturated, this vapor I have in mind has to be slightly superheated. Okay, that is the meaning of suction superheating. So let me represent this suction superheating. So let us say this is vertical and this is a horizontal. Okay. This is let me draw the vapor dome now. I need to erase this. This is not the vapor dome I intend to draw. Okay. So what is vertical here? Vertical is, I'm drawing the pressure enthalpy diagram, mind well. So this is P and this is H and this is the vapor dome. Okay. This is the vapor dome. Okay. Now it is neat. So what I mean by suction superheating is as follows. This was the saturation cycle. This was the saturation cycle, meaning that the state 1 was dry saturated. And when I'm saying suction superheating, what I mean is that the state 1 has shifted to 1 dash, and this is the new isentropic 2 dash. Okay, 2 dash. And this, the usual things remain as they are. The process of heat rejection obviously has to be a horizontal line on a pressure enthalpy diagram. So 1 to 2, the original process of the simple saturation cycle, and 1 dash to 2 dash is the process of suction superheating. Sorry, 1 to 1 dash is the process of suction superheating. And because of this, the process 1 to 2 is shifted to 1 dash to 2 dash. Okay, so this is let us say 3, and this is 4. Vertical is 4. Okay. 3 to 4. So this cycle, that is 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 and 4, is the thermodynamic cycle we are talking about, involving suction superheating. So if you compare the cycle 1 dash, 2 dash, 3, 4 with 1, 2, 3 and 4, okay, then we would understand that these two cycles, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 dash, 2 dash, 3, 4, okay, they would signify some variations. Okay, and what are they? So one of it is, if you look at if you compare the two, that is the saturation cycle, if you compare it with the cycle with suction superheating, you would understand that the refrigerating effect, the specific refrigerating effect has increased. And what was the specific refrigerating effect earlier? So the specific refrigerating earlier was H1 minus H4. That was the specific refrigerating effect earlier. Okay, earlier meaning the saturation cycle. And because of suction superheating, now what is the specific refrigerating effect? The specific refrigerating effect now is H1 dash. So this has changed to, in fact, it has increased from H1 minus H4 to H1 dash minus H4. Okay. So one of the effect of suction superheating is that there is an increase in the specific refrigerating effect. Okay. And if there is an increase in the specific refrigerating effect, you understand that for a given capacity of the machine, for a given tonnage of the refrigeration system, the mass flow rate of the refrigerant would also reduce. Okay, so the mass flow rate of the refrigerant per TR would reduce, the specific refrigerating effect would increase. So this is the first modification. Because of the modification, these are the impacts. That one is what? Because of suction superheating, the specific refrigerating effect increases from H1 minus H4 to H1 dash minus H4. Second is, for the given capacity, the mass flow rate per ton of refrigeration would decrease. What will happen to the compressor work? If you look at the compressor work, the specific compressor work is H2 minus H1. Okay, specific compressor work is H2 minus H1 of the saturation cycle. So the specific compressor work, which was H2 minus H1, now is different and it has changed to H2 dash minus H1 dash. Okay. So what has happened? Whether this has increased, whether it has decreased, whether it has remained constant. So if you look at the diagram, you will see that the line which I have drawn, 1 dash, 2 dash, is flatter as compared to 1 to 2. Okay, this is how the isentropic lines move if you move away from the saturation curve. So the line which is 1 to 2 has gone is steeper, whereas the line 1 dash, 2 dash is flatter. So if the line 1 dash, 2 dash is flatter, you would understand that, looking at the pressure enthalpy diagram, you will understand that H2 dash minus H1 dash, H2 dash minus H1 dash would be greater than H2 minus H1, H2 minus H1. So in other words, what we would find is that the specific compressor work would increase, because of what? Because of suction superheating, which is not desirable, obviously. This is desirable. Specific refrigerating effect increases. Specific refrigerating effect increases. This is a desirable feature. Mass flow rate per ton of refrigeration decreases. This is also a desirable feature. However, the specific compressor work increasing is not desirable. It's not desirable. But because you know that there is always a trade-off in the real life, we cannot achieve everything what we want. Similarly, by suction superheating, we would achieve two desirable things. That is, the specific refrigerating effect increases, the mass flow rate per TR would decrease, but the specific compressor work would increase. What would happen to the coefficient of performance? So you know that coefficient of performance, COP, let us say this is 1, impact is 1, this is the second impact, this is third impact, this is fourth impact. So the coefficient of performance is what? Coefficient of performance is the specific refrigerating effect upon the specific compressor work. Now specific refrigerating effect increases and specific compressor work also increases. So mathematically, if you look at simply mathematically, that numerator is increasing and the denominator is also increasing. So we cannot for sure say whether the compressor work is going to increase or decrease. Okay. But if you look at the real life problems and if you look at the real life properties of the refrigerants, you would find that generally the coefficient of performance would increase. Okay. So what is the impact of suction superheating? One is, because of suction superheating, the specific refrigerating effect increases from, it was earlier H1 minus H4, now it is increased to H1 dash minus H4. Second is the mass flow rate per tonnage of refrigerant would decrease. Third is the power consumption, that is a specific power consumption, would increase because the lines become flatter as you move away from the saturation curve, and the coefficient of performance might increase or decrease. The heat rejection would also increase. If you see the heat rejection earlier, so if I plot, if you find the heat rejected in the condenser, earlier in the saturation cycle it was H2 minus H3, and now it has increased to H2 dash minus H3. Okay, so the duty on the condenser has increased, the condenser size has to be increased. Okay, so these are the important impacts of suction superheating. Suction superheating in most of the cases is desirable because that would prevent the possibility of liquid refrigerant flooding back to the compressor. If you try to control the state 1, then what would happen is that there is a possibility of the liquid refrigerant entering the compressor, which is not desirable from the life perspective, compressor life perspective, as well as from the operational issues of the compressor. Okay. So that is not desirable. So generally, we would always have some suction superheating. Whether the suction superheating has to be designed or whether the suction superheating happens in the suction line, that also matters. What I mean to say is that when you are talking about suction superheating, let us just recollect the schematic which we were discussing earlier. You know that there are two heat exchangers. One is the condenser and other is the evaporator. When you are talking about suction superheating, the suction superheating can happen within the evaporator. If it happens within the evaporator, then the refrigerating effect will increase. But if it happens in the suction line, okay, and there is a possibility of it happening in the suction line, because though the suction line means the line which is connecting the evaporator to the inlet of the compressor, the piping, I mean to say, in the layman's language, the piping through which the refrigerant is going to flow into the compressor. So that, if this is a compressor, let us say, this line is insulated, and you'll find that in the real refrigeration systems, this line is insulated. But in spite of insulation, there is a possibility that some heat transfer would happen into the system, that is into the refrigerant, and this heat transfer might result in suction superheating. If that happens, then you would understand that this suction superheating is not going to have an impact on the increase in the refrigerating effect. So that suction superheating would not increase the performance of the system. So please understand that suction superheating happening in the evaporator could only contribute to the increase in the refrigerating effect. If the suction superheating happens in the suction line, then it is not going to increase the refrigerating effect. Okay, it would, however, increase the compressor work, and that won't be desirable. Okay, so we should always insulate the suction line so that there is no suction superheating in the suction line. Okay, we should try to avoid the suction superheating in the suction line, and we should aim for suction superheating within the heat exchanger, namely within the evaporator. And obviously, the reason being, suction superheating in the evaporator, I am stressing this again and again, that suction superheating in the evaporator would increase the specific refrigerating effect, and it would enhance the performance of the system. Okay. Now let us move to the second point, that is the second modification, which is liquid subcooling. Okay. So let me go to the next slide. So what we will be discussing now is the liquid subcooling. Liquid subcooling, liquid is encountered in the condenser. Okay. So when you are saying liquid subcooling, I am referring to the condenser. Liquid refrigerant, you know that in the simple saturation cycle, we had assumed that the refrigerant exiting the condenser is saturated liquid. Okay. So if you recollect this pressure enthalpy diagram, so this is the pressure, this is the enthalpy, and this phenomena is the process of condensation. Okay, so in the, this is 2, this is 3. Okay. So when the condensation ends on the saturated liquid line, there is no subcooling. But when you are talking about liquid subcooling, it means that the temperature at the exit of the condenser is below the saturation temperature. Okay, so this is 3 dash. So when I am saying it is liquid subcooling, I mean the condensation, the outlet of the condenser, the refrigerant, instead of exiting at 3 would exit at 3 dash. Okay, so what would change is, instead of the process being 3 to 4 like this, it would be somewhat like this. Okay, so let us say that this is your 4 and this is your 4 dash. Okay, and this was your 1. So let us say this is your 2. Okay, so this is 1. 1 to 2 is dry compression. 2 to 3 is condensation with the liquid leaving at saturated liquid state, and 2 to 3 dash is the condensation involving liquid subcooling. So the process of liquid subcooling can be shown by 3 to 3 dash. What do you understand by subcooling? Subcooling means cooling below the saturation temperature. The meaning of subcooling in thermodynamics is you cool below the saturation temperature. Okay. So what is the impact? What happens because of liquid subcooling? That is of interest. What happens to the performance of the system because of liquid subcooling? So if you concentrate your attention again here, let us first figure out what happens to the specific refrigerating effect. So the first is, we'll try to figure out what happens to the specific refrigerating effect. What was the specific refrigerating effect in the saturation cycle? The specific refrigerating effect in the saturation cycle was H1 minus H4. The specific refrigerating effect in the saturation cycle was H1 minus H4, and because of liquid subcooling, this specific refrigerating effect has now increased to H1 minus H4 dash. So whether this is desirable? Obviously this is desirable. Okay, by liquid subcooling, what you see over here, and it is very clear from the pressure enthalpy diagram, that the liquid subcooling enhances, it increases the specific refrigerating effect from H1 minus H4 to H1 minus H4 dash. And this obviously is the most desirable feature when you talk about the impact of liquid subcooling on the cycle. Okay, so this is good thing, that liquid subcooling increases the specific refrigerating effect. Now what happens to the compressor work? Okay, because you know that when you are talking about the impact, we are basically concentrating our attention on these two things. One is the specific refrigerating effect and other is the compressor work. So what happens to the compressor work? So if you look at the compressor work earlier was H2 minus H1, specific compressor work. I am talking about specific compressor work. So the specific compressor work earlier, that is in the saturation cycle, was H2 minus H1. And now it remains unchanged and it remains H2 minus H1 even in the modified cycle. So even in the modified cycle, you will find that the locations of state 1 and state 2, they remain unchanged, and hence the compressor work, the specific compressor work would remain the same. However, what happens to the mass flow rate? Because mass flow rate per tonnage, okay, because the specific refrigerating effect increases, the mass flow rate per capacity, per tonnage capacity of the system would decrease. And you know that if the mass flow rate decreases, the total power consumption, we have solved one numerical on this, power consumption of the compressor is calculated as m dot into the enthalpy difference across the compressor, that is H2 minus H1. And if you look at this carefully, that because the mass flow rate per tonnage of the system capacity decreases, the power consumption, the total power consumption per TR would decrease. Okay, per TR would decrease, right? And this would obviously be an positive contribution because of liquid subcooling. So liquid subcooling is desirable if you achieve the liquid subcooling this way, right? That is in the discharge line of the condenser, right? And we will discuss what would happen if the liquid subcooling is achieved in the condenser also. Okay, that we will discuss shortly. What would happen to the coefficient of performance? Coefficient of performance, as you know, COP is the ratio of specific refrigerating effect upon specific compressor work. Specific refrigerating effect, which is the numerator, would increase. The specific compressor work, which is the denominator, remains unchanged. And then from mathematical skills, we can deduce that the coefficient of performance enhances, increases because of liquid subcooling. However, so does that mean that we should go on subcooling it? No. There are other issues, other complicated issues we need to understand here. We need to understand that the effect of liquid subcooling might increase the condenser duty. When I'm saying condenser duty is what? It is basically the heat rejected in the condenser. So you see from this that H2 minus H3 was the heat rejected in the condenser earlier. Now the heat rejected would be H2 minus H3 dash. So the heat rejected earlier was H2 minus H3. Now it has increased to H2 minus H3 dash, meaning that the duty of the condenser, the capacity of the condenser has increased. This would lead to increase in the size of the condenser. This would also lead to increase in the pumping power if you are talking about the water cooled condenser, okay, which is obviously going to have an impact on the electricity consumption of the plant, the running cost of the plant. Okay, this is one thing. It would increase the initial capital cost if the condenser is bulky. That is the important thing. And second thing is the effect of liquid subcooling would depend upon the specific heat. Now, how much is the liquid subcooling? If you try to find this H3 minus H3 dash, H3 minus H3 dash is basically Cp delta T, Cp into T3 minus T3 dash. So it all depends upon the value of the specific heat of liquid, CPL. Specific heat of liquid of the refrigerant would vary depending upon the kind of refrigerant we are choosing. Okay, so if it is the ammonia as a refrigerant, the ammonia as a refrigerant has got a lower value of liquid subcooling as compared to the latent heat of vaporization. So if you go for ammonia as a refrigerant with liquid subcooling, then the advantages of liquid subcooling, they are not that pronounced. Okay, so we need to then work out, though generally speaking we have discussed the general impacts of liquid subcooling, but then we need to discuss the liquid subcooling depending upon in the context of the properties of the refrigerant. So as I said, for example, if ammonia is used as a refrigerant, then the advantages of liquid subcooling are not much because the effect of liquid subcooling is less pronounced as a result of the fact that there is a larger latent heat of vaporization as compared to the liquid specific heat value, CP value. Okay, this we need to keep in mind. The other thing is that if you are talking about liquid subcooling by using a heat exchanger, means for example, let us say that I want to achieve liquid subcooling. So I can design a system. Look at this diagram very carefully. Okay. Let us say this is one heat exchanger, which is a condenser, and there is another heat exchanger, which is the evaporator. Obviously, in a two pressure systems, you would have two heat exchangers, the evaporator and a condenser. Evaporator and a condenser. Now, in order to get a liquid subcooling, one can use this trick. Okay, look at the diagram very carefully. I can put a heat exchanger over here. This is the liquid vapor heat exchanger. I can put a heat exchanger over here, which is a liquid vapor heat exchanger. Okay. Liquid vapor heat exchanger. Now, what is being exchanged here? Let me complete the diagram and you would understand. So what is happening is the refrigerant from the evaporator enters this liquid vapor heat exchanger, and then it goes to the compressor, Okay, and the refrigerant from the condenser, first it goes to the liquid heat exchanger, and then it goes to the expansion device. So in your normal case, what happens is that the refrigerant from the condenser enters the expansion device directly, and the refrigerant from the evaporator enters the compressor directly. Now, because of this liquid vapor heat exchanger, suppose this state is 1. So because of the liquid vapor heat exchanger, there is a suction superheating in the liquid vapor heat exchanger, and there is a, suppose this is your 3, and there is a liquid subcooling. There is a liquid subcooling in the liquid vapor heat exchanger. Why is that happening? That is because the refrigerant which is at 3 is at a higher temperature. Mind well, it is at a higher temperature as compared to the refrigerant which is at a state 1. This you understand. It's at a lower temperature, and this refrigerant which is at a lower temperature, there is an exchange of heat with the refrigerant which is at a higher temperature. So what would happen? There would be a heat rejection from the refrigerant which is at a state 3 to the refrigerant which is at a state 1, and the state 1 would superheat to state 1 dash, and the state 3 would subcool to 3 dash. Okay, so here we are achieving simultaneously the liquid suction superheating and liquid subcooling by making use of a heat exchanger. Okay, so if you refrigerant by using such kind of heat exchanger, okay, then the effect of such subcooling would be, that is, it would superheat the vapor entering into the compressor and it would increase the compressor work. Okay, so by superheating the vapor this way, your compressor work would increase. And why is that so? As I explained earlier, that suction superheating increases the compressor work, and that is to do with the line being flatter as compared to the saturation compression. Okay, so this is going to increase the compressor work. Okay, this you need to keep in mind. The second thing is that it would increase the specific refrigerating effect because you are achieving subcooling, right? Why this specific refrigerating effect increases? Because your 0.3 shifts to 3 dash, and hence your 4 shifts to 4 dash, and hence your specific refrigerating effect increases. However, because the compressor work increases, such a scenario might not necessarily increase the coefficient of performance. Okay, so this also we need to keep in mind, that though we have discussed that liquid subcooling increases the coefficient of performance in the general sense, but case by case we need to find out what is the effect of liquid subcooling on the performance of the vapor compression refrigeration system. Okay, so this need to be clear about it. Now let us discuss the third case. That is, what is the effect of changing the suction pressure? The third case we will be discussing the changing effect of changing the suction pressure. So whether by lowering the suction pressure we can improve the performance, or by raising the suction pressure we can improve the performance. Okay, so again I represent the process with and without change in the suction pressure on a pressure enthalpy diagram. So this is one line and this is the other line. So let us say that earlier this was the cycle. Let us say that this was the cycle earlier. And now this was a cycle earlier, and now it has changed to 1 dash. This is 4 dash. This will be 2 dash. Okay. I hope this is very clear to you. You can erase the extra lines if you want. Erase the extra lines here. Okay. So concentrate your attention on this very interesting fact that the earlier cycle, so the earlier cycle was at a pressure, the suction pressure or the evaporator pressure, which is the suction pressure, was earlier P1 is equal to P4. And now it has changed to new pressure, which is P1 dash, which is equal to P4 dash. So if you look at this diagram carefully, if your suction pressure decreases, the specific refrigerating effect decreases. And it is very clear from this diagram. Okay. What happens to the specific refrigerating effect? The specific refrigerating effect, which was earlier H1 minus H4, it has decreased to H1 dash minus H4 dash. So the specific refrigerating effect has decreased because of suction, because of lowering of the suction pressure, And second is, if you can figure out from the diagram, the specific compressor work, which was earlier H2 minus H1, that has increased to H2 dash minus H1 dash. So if you look at this, both the things, they are not favorable. That is, the decrease of the specific refrigerating effect is not desirable, and the increase of the specific compressor work is not desirable. Meaning that lowering of the suction pressure is going to decrease the coefficient of performance. The coefficient of performance, which is the ratio of specific refrigerating effect, the numerator is decreasing, and the denominator, which is specific compressor work, is increasing, is going to adversely affect the coefficient of performance. The coefficient of performance is going to decrease because of lowering of the suction pressure. So if you want to increase the coefficient of performance, then we need to keep the suction pressure as high as possible. Okay, now why I'm saying as high as possible, the reason is very simple. We cannot dictate, okay, we cannot design what should be the suction pressure. Suction pressure is defined not by the design engineers in a general sense. Suction pressure is a function of the application. What I mean by this, let me elaborate on this a bit. If you are talking about, let us say, a refrigeration system like your freezer, okay, and let us say that you want to maintain a much lower temperature, -10 or -20 degrees centigrade. Okay, vis-a-vis if you want to talk about the AC system where you are comfortable with maintaining a higher temperature. Okay, now if you use the same refrigerant, the same refrigerant is used in both the cases, then obviously suction pressure here has to be much lower, and the suction pressure here would be more, and hence the coefficient of performance of the freezer would be lower and coefficient of performance of AC would be higher. Right? Why is that so? Because lowering the suction pressure reduces the coefficient of performance. But then we cannot do anything about it, right? We cannot do much about it, I would say rather, because these temperatures are to be maintained and they are dictated by the application. Okay, so that is the meaning of this, that though it is desirable to maintain the suction pressure as high as possible, but one cannot do much about it because the suction pressure is defined by the requirement, the refrigeration requirement. It would be lower if you are talking about the applications like cold storages, freezing, etc. It would be higher if you are talking about applications like comfort air conditioning. Okay, so this has to be kept in mind. So what is the effect of reducing suction pressure on the performance? The effect of reducing suction pressure on the performance is that it would reduce the specific refrigerating effect. It would increase the mass flow rate of the refrigerant per ton. I'll just list it out. The mass flow rate per ton would also increase, which is not desirable. It would increase the compressor work, and it would reduce the coefficient of performance. It would reduce the coefficient of performance. Obviously, the duty of the condenser would decrease, and the compressor capacity would increase because the specific volume here would increase. Because at a lower, this V1 dash would be greater than V1. Okay, V1 dash would be greater than V1. So this is going to have an impact on the compressor volume. This would have an impact on the compressor volume. So this is another feature which is to be understood when we discuss the effect of the changing of the suction pressure on the performance of the vapor compression refrigeration cycle. Okay, and finally, we would be interested in knowing what is the effect of changing the condenser pressure on the impact of performance. Okay, condenser pressure. So again, the usual procedure. How do we discuss this? We need to first draw the Bayes diagram. Bayes diagram means the pressure enthalpy diagram, which would include plotting a vapor dome, and then we will be talking about the saturation cycle. This is the saturation cycle. And then we'll be drawing a new cycle where the condenser pressure is, let us say, increased. Okay. Condenser pressure is increased. So let us say this is your throttling process, and this is your evaporation process. Okay. This is 1, 2, this is 3, 4. 1 to 2 is isentropic compression. 2 to 3 is constant pressure heat rejection, 3 to 4 is isenthalpic expansion, and 4 to 1 is evaporation process. Okay, constant pressure heat addition. And the new cycle is when you change the pressure to a higher pressure. So let me show that. Let us suppose the new pressure is this. Let us say this is the new pressure. So this is the new pressure. So this would be a new 0.2. Let me call this as 2 dash. So if you have a 2 dash, then you would have a new 3 dash because this is a constant pressure line. And then to draw a vertical from this, you'll have a new 4 dash. You'll have a new 4 dash. Okay. So look at this. Look at this. So the usual discussion you would do. Let me first write down what was the condenser pressure earlier. The condenser pressure earlier was P2 equal to P3, and now it is increased to P2 dash. So the new condenser pressure is P2 dash is equal to P3 dash. Now, what is the effect of increasing the condenser pressure? So the effect of increasing the condenser pressure from the thermodynamic perspective, if you look at it, let us concentrate on what happens to the specific refrigerating. What happens to the specific refrigerating effect? So what was the specific refrigerating effect earlier? The specific refrigerating effect earlier was H1 minus H4 dash. H1 minus H4 dash. Okay. And now, just a minute. H1 minus H4 was the specific refrigerating effect earlier, and now it has changed to H1 minus H4 dash. So whether it has increased or decreased? So from the diagram, it is clear that the specific refrigerating effect has decreased, which is not desirable. Specific refrigerating effect has decreased, right? What happens to the specific compressor work? So specific compressor work, again, if you look at this, let me write down here. So the specific refrigerating effect has decreased, which is not at all desirable. Specific compressor work has increased, which is also not desirable. Look at the specific compressor work earlier. It was H2 minus H1, and now it has increased to H2 dash minus H1. Not at all desirable. Not at all desirable, right? Because you know that coefficient of performance, which is the ratio of the specific refrigerating effect to the specific compressor work would decrease, and this is again not acceptable for us, right? So then what we should do, if you want to enhance the performance of the refrigeration system, we need to maintain the condenser pressure as low as possible, but then how is the condenser pressure decided? Condenser pressure is decided by the ambient temperature and by the design of the heat exchanger. So ambient temperature, for example, if you are operating the system in a climate which is too hot, then obviously the condenser pressure would be higher. The specific refrigerating effect would be lower, the power consumption would be more, the coefficient of performance would be lower. If you are operating the system at a relatively cooler climate, then the condenser pressure would be lower. The condenser pressure is lower, so the specific refrigerating effect would be relatively more. The specific compressor work would be relatively less, and the coefficient of performance would be relatively more. Okay. So one thing is we don't have the control over the ambient conditions, right? We cannot decide what is the ambient temperature. So that ambient temperatures, higher ambient temperatures would result in higher condenser pressures, and higher condenser pressures are not at all desirable. So then what we can do as an engineer? So as an engineer, we can see to it that the heat exchanger which we design is as efficient as possible. Okay. So what it means? For example, if there is a choice to be made regarding the air-cooled condenser and water-cooled condenser, one can go for a water-cooled condenser if the capacity is higher. So if you go for a water-cooled condenser, you know that water-cooled condensers are more efficient than air-cooled condensers, and if your water-cooled condensers are used, that is going to give you a relatively lower condenser pressure, and a relatively lower condenser pressure means higher performance. Mind well that we don't find water-cooled condensers in your household refrigerators. Why is that so? we don't find water cooled condensers in your split air conditioning systems. Why is that so? That is because when you are using a water cooled condensers, there would be an additional capital cost, there would be an additional pumping cost. Okay, so for a smaller systems like your household refrigerators or your domestic air conditioning systems, then there it is not desirable. Though from a thermodynamic perspective, it would give you an enhanced performance. It is not desirable to design the condenser, which is a water cooled condenser. But if you are talking about the big systems, central air conditioning systems, right, which you see in malls, hospitals, okay, big hotels, everywhere, you would find that necessarily that condenser is a water cooled condenser. Okay, so this we need to keep in mind that the performance of the system has to do with the condenser pressure, which is a very crucial thing. There are some practical things like, for example, you need to maintain the condenser. If there is a utility and if it is not maintaining the condenser properly, the performance of the condenser will degrade. If you are not maintaining the water quality, the performance, there would be scale formation on the condenser, and that would result in the decrease in the coefficient of performance. And what does the decrease in coefficient of performance mean? The decrease in coefficient of performance would mean, in practical terms, increasing the energy bill, okay, which obviously would not be desirable. That is our job. The job is to see that the systems operate efficiently. So all these discussions which we had, that is how do we summarize them? So one is that there has to be suction superheating, which would enhance the refrigerating effect, but that has to be carefully done. The degree of superheat has to be carefully controlled so that there is a net gain in the coefficient of performance. So suction superheating increases the specific refrigerating effect, but it also increases the compressor one. Okay, so that was discussed. Second thing which we discussed was regarding the liquid subcooling. We talked about liquid subcooling enhancing the refrigerating effect and increasing the performance. But we also talked about a liquid vapor heat exchanger, and the context of that has to be clearly kept in mind. The third was regarding the evaporator pressure. The evaporator pressure has to be as high as possible, but then we talked about the evaporator pressure being the function of the application, right? And finally, we discussed the very important parameter, namely the condenser pressure, and we said that we need to keep the condenser pressure as low as possible to enhance the performance of the system. I hope that this discussion clarifies much more things, and it would improve your understanding and a practical understanding of how do we operate the practical refrigeration systems. Thank you for now. Thanks for being on. Bye.